So this is our river centre. This is basically where we hold our fish throughout the life of the Fish in the Classroom project. Here is our water tank. We fill it up from the river, which is just outside our river centre here. Every few days, it's fed through gravity, so it's higher up, and it feeds the pipes into the hatchery trays here. The water flows all the way through these trays. It's on a slight tilt, and it takes it to the other end where it drops into the bucket and then out a little drain at the other end of the centre. You can see the little lines in the tray here, so there's lots and lots of aeration happening around the eggs, allowing them to get all the oxygen that they need to survive. Our holding facility holds these eggs at a consistent temperature, 7-8 degrees. That just means that they develop at the right rate. Whilst the classes have their eggs, we have these here developing alongside them, and then at the end of the project they all go out at the same time. So these guys will make it into the river as well. Start time is January, just after schools get back after Christmas. We go in and we do all of our introductions to the project normally, and then we'll set up the tank, have that water get settled. The water comes from taps. We need to clean it out and get it filtered for the safety of the fish. So we'll get our fish delivered to us, and then we'll put them straight in here in our holding facility. They'll stay here for a week or so and slowly go out into schools. Come the end of January, start of February, that's when we start to take the fish to the classes. Over the course of February and into March, the schools will look after their fish and then release them sort of mid-March time. Each school will have a pipette, and every day they need to check the tank for any dead eggs that have happened sort of overnight. It's a natural process that occurs. They'll lay a lot of eggs because they know very few of them will actually make it through to hatch. What you're looking for is any white eggs, or in the case of some of these, they've started to hatch out and haven't made it fully out of the egg casing. Take these out, because if you don't, they'll set a fungus into the water and it'll infect the eggs around. When they hatch into alevins, you can see that they don't normally sit in amongst the eggs because we've got all of these little aeration holes. What they'll do is they'll slide into that and they'll sit underneath. There we go. So you can see a few have hatched already. The COVID pandemic really hit us hard. All of our plans that we had made, they just all went out the window. We'd already got the fish lined up and everything, so we had to go collect them and then look after them ourselves in our own fish tank. They could continue to do the workbooks and all the activities, but they didn't get to have any fish actually in the class for them to look after. We had to send all this resources back over to the school for them to try and feel like their fish were still their fish. By sort of March time, when the releases normally happen, we were able to get some schools to go out with their fish to release them. It was all very social distance, but at least they could see their fish in person and then watch them go into the river. So there was a good ending to the project. It was a much pared down version of our Fish in the Classroom project, but we still had good feedback, which was, at least the schools were invested. A lot of our teachers, they say that the main part of the project isn't just that they're looking after fish, it's like teaching them about the sort of the life cycle and like death that happens. We do always tell our kids that all of these fish won't survive, it's just how it happens in the wild. In the classroom, that's really taken on board because they're the ones that are looking at the eggs and removing the alevins that are dead and seeing that process happen and the struggles that the fish have. In January, before the eggs arrive, we have to make sure that this place is set up. The water tank will need cleaned, brushed out, emptied. The sediment that's collected in the bottom may have collected algae over the course of a year. All of our hatchery trays will need to be completely sanitized, scrubbed to make sure that there's no leftovers from any of the dead eggs from last year. It all gets cleaned at the end of the project and then again at the start of the project. Make sure everything's flushed properly. So it takes a little while to fill the tank and then to empty the tank through the system and then refill everything and make sure it's all oxygenated prior to the arrival of the fish. What we do is we connect all of our hoses up to the tank. All the water will flow up from the river and then into the top of the tank. And they run down to the water where we'll take down our generator and the pump. It sits into the bank there at the river. that'll get turned on and the power will pull the water up to the tank and fill it. It takes a little bit of time to fill because it's such a big tank. So now we have turned the generator on. It can take a little bit of time to get it started, just making sure that the pressures are right. But yeah, so it's on now and the water is pumping into the tank. So we give it about 10-15 minutes, check it regularly to make sure it's not getting too close to the top. So it's about there. And then once it's at the level that we're happy with, we come back down and just turn it off. Yep, we're good. We have to have clean hands for this. I don't ever touch the eggs, but the process requires me to float them in onto the paddle. And that way you get an almost full paddle. You can supplement with a few of the eggs, and that way you know exactly how many are going to each school. Just put them into a bag while I do each paddle. There's 50 holes and each school gets 200. You want to make sure you've got enough time to sort of do this gently with each sweep. The trick is to try not and crush them because they're quite delicate once they've been fertilised. When we go out to the schools, we have a cooler each to try and keep the water temperature from getting too hot during transport. These baskets are good for transport so that the water flow can be maintained around them and they can remain in the water that they came from and in to the basket. Perfect. Got an aerator here. It pumps air through the air stone into the water. You can see. I put my polystyrene, set him on top, and that just keeps everything happy for transport. And then when we get to the school, we'll pick out one school's worth and put it in a plastic bag and then transport it into the class. Drip some water from the tank into the bag of eggs, in and out, making sure that the temperature begins to change so the fish can acclimate to the new tank temperature that they're going into and the new tank water, which should be clean, but it will be a bit different. So that's why we do that slowly in the class. And having them in a little plastic bag is the easiest way to sort of float them in the tank and do that. So you can see how they bounce around? Yeah. That's the hose, because it pushes the oxygenated water sort of along the bottom of the tank. It'll bounce some of the eggs around. It'll settle eventually. Okay. Oh, there's an oven there. Yeah, you spotted one. Yeah, they're so nice. Yeah. The orange is from that yolk sac. Uh-huh. And it's more vibrant once they've hatched out. Yeah. Oh, they're fab. As you move the stones and stuff, like your movements of your hands and stuff will push them around. Okay, right, well, good luck. Oh. That's you ready to go. Let's hope I don't kill any of them. Come on, guys. So the next thing that we will come back and do is I'll either come back and check in periodically throughout February. Either to sort of just, if you want us to come along and check something out, or if I'm just doing a route trying to find access down to a barn for the release day, or just want to come in and have a look after school or whatever and see how things are going. That'll take us through February, and then into March time is when we'll be looking at the release. If you can keep it as cold as this, then it'll be towards the end of March. Okay. And then that means that it'll be a case of just organising things, and then one day I'll come in and we'll pick up all of our fish, we'll put them in bags and the kids will carry them all down to the river, and then we'll release them into the barn. So that's sort of the release day, and then we'll get to have a look at all the invertebrates and stuff that happen to be in the river with the fish, and then there's another sort of activity and stuff for the kids to do to round off the project. So that's sort of just before the Easter holidays, hopefully. Some of the activities that we have to do for fish in the class, especially when we bring on a new school, is to try and find a suitable release site for all of the pupils to walk to. We try to keep it as local as possible. That way it's sort of connected to their local area, and that means that I'll spend a bit of time walking the route down that we may spend with the pupils, timing it, making sure that the traffic's not too heavy, that we are at suitable locations to cross. So we spend a lot of time building up that information of all of our local release sites. Perfect. So we've got good access down to the little bit of river here, and it's got shallower water and nice sort of slow water for us to put the fish into, and they'll be able to disperse from there. We're looking for like a little bit of gravelly type habitat. There's maybe a bit of bedrock and some gravels down here that you can see. So now that I know what this is like, I can go back and check what the water level is, and then I'll know how much it'll rise from there, given on what day we decide to come back. And whether or not it's still safe to access for the pupils. But you can see we've come a nice route through on a public footpath and grassland area, so it's not too much traffic and things like that. And we've got plenty of spots to choose from just along this little section, in case, for example, if this one was to be cordoned off or inaccessible through down to the river. So we would see what options we've got further down, but otherwise perfectly happy with putting in some little Alvin's trout fry into the burn here. So I've got the time at 2:43, so we'll just time ourselves on the way back so we know how quickly it'll take us to walk it fully all the way through with the pupils. Perfect. So you guys have managed to develop quite nicely, and that you've still got a little bit of orange lift, which was what we're looking for. Each pupil sort of made a story, but it's based on the stuff that they were learning. The little yolk sacs. Oh, adorable.
That's stressed me out.
Yeah. Normally I'll do a bag for each pupil.
Okay.
So I'm doing about 18.
Perfect, that's how many children.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which was funny, they were like, can we go to the Brothy and like visit them?
That's what we're looking for at the end of these projects, is for like the pupils to feel like they can go down and engage with the river and the water course and see it as a place that has animals in it. So what we're going to do today is we are going to go out and release our fish, aren't we? So you've looked after them for the last 8 weeks. So you've done a really good job of keeping the tank nice and cold for the fish, giving them a really good start to their life. So now we get to go and put them in the river, a little burn down really close by, so you've probably been there before, and you guys will get to carry with you some of the fish from the tank. So if we can keep a nice firm grip on them and maybe don't shake the bags, then that is great. When you've got them at this age, they're just starting out and they're all nice and small, just like you were when you started out. But then eventually they'll grow up and they might go out to sea, and they might grow even bigger as they get more food out in the ocean. You've got 5. You've got 5. That's so cool, isn't it? So you guys have done your little walk down to the barn, and this is where we're going to put the fish in. When we get to the front of the line, but only when we get to the front if we can, we're going to open our bags up like a little bag of crisps. So we just pull the tops apart and then we place them in the bucket and we tip the fish in. And I'll help you all with the fish in the bucket here, so we can all release them nice and safely into the water that Scott's already collected. So that's some water from the barn. So it gives them a little chance to sense what they're going into. I don't know, have a look.
Perfect.
Well done.
Well done.
Oh, okay. So they may stay in this little section of burn, or they may swim back the way down the water into something that's a little bit bigger, so that they've got more space to grow. But for your little fish, they're so small, aren't they? So this little burn's just fine for them for now. I don't just tip the bucket in. They might not be ready to leave then, will they? So they need to come out on their own. So that's what we like to do for them. But hopefully you can still see in the bucket. Can you still see?
Yes.
Perfect. So all I need to do then is let them come out on their own. They might hide under some stones, so I'm going to have to be careful when I get out. Or they might swim away upstream and try and find more habitat further up. Here, you can see there's current, isn't there? There's water flowing down the way. Whereas in your tank, it's quite still. So this is all very new to them. It's all a nice new habitat that'll take them a little while to get used to. But I think they're just a little bit comfortable and they've been looked after too well, so they're a little bit reluctant to leave. There you go. So they're getting used to it. So just like we need shelter, these guys need shelter. So they'll find a place that they like and then they'll probably stay there for quite some time. There they go. So we're going to wave goodbye. Wave goodbye. And there he goes. Well done. but I can't see any just now, which means they found a nice good hiding spot to try and get out of the way of any predators that might live in the water or see them from above. This habitat is perfect. All of these really good broadleaf trees. In the summer, you can imagine all of this canopy, nice and protective of them, keeping it nice and cold. This is really good habitat for them. I'm excited for these guys. I think they're going to have a nice, good, long life. So, well done.
A fish is so cute. I love fish because I take care of them. I love them when I was about to cry.
Once the fish are in, it's just having a look at the bugs and trying to keep them engaged in what they're finding in the trays and things. Yeah, so these guys, they like to live in water, remember? So we can't have them out for too long. Do you want to put them back in the tray?
Can I go show my teacher?
That's a case caddis, and this is a caseless caddis. Please, he makes a shell, like a wee house out of all the little stones and sand in the river.
Yeah.
Can you see it?
Oh, Thomas has got one leg. Look, so it's long and it's quickly. I think that's a water slayer.
This is a freshwater shrimp.
Yeah.
And you see it swims on its side. And it's quite like a prawn that you get for your dinner sometimes.
Yeah.
If anybody likes prawns.
I like them.
Okay, has everyone had fun?
Yes!
Are we all going to miss our fish?
Yes!
Did you have fun with the classroom activities of like looking after the fish and stuff? Do you think you learned a lot there, like how to keep the tank nice and cold, how to keep it clean, and learning all about what fish are going to face once they go into the river and the rest of their lives. So we were talking about it earlier. They're going to now turn into fry. Start eating all those delicious little bugs that we've seen in the trays. Yes, delicious to a fish. And then they're going to grow nice and strong and healthy, and they're going to head out to sea, hopefully, where they'll get really big and strong, come back and have lots and lots of more little babies. So it's all part of the circle of life.
What does circle of life mean?
Oh, it means that we're born and we live and then we die, but there's more that comes in to replace us. So it just keeps going round and round and round. And it's really good because that means that our rivers are going to stay nice and healthy, and there's going to be lots and lots of fish and other animals that support a nice healthy place that we live in.
Bye.
So for the Trust, this project's been going on for quite a long time, since sort of 2009 when we had very few schools involved. The way that the project is and the engagement that comes out of it, it has managed to grow and be very popular. Each year we'll get lots of emails from teachers, how can I get my school involved in this project? So it has become a really important part of the Trust, but of course it takes a lot of hours to organise, it takes a lot of staff time, and it's a lot of travel back and forth through different schools and all sorts. So the cost of the project is quite high, but the outcomes of the project are equally important, and it makes a difference to the right age group, and they're the ones that are going to be looking after our rivers into the future. We try to make sure that none of the teachers are struggling, because that means that the impact is not just felt for the teacher, but it's felt for the pupils, and also it means that we might not have them invested into sort of future years of project activities. A good sort of fish in the class year means that they'll come back and they'll want to do more things with us.